And so, Jay, if Chiefs are to step up in the Nedbank Cup final after having played this particular derby, where do you think they can exploit and hurt Pirates? What did you see in this particular derby that they can use going forward to then try and surprise everyone?
Kaizer Chiefs can get a lot of confidence from that first half performance, right? Because they controlled the match. They controlled the tempo. They had the position. It, they weren't always breaking through the lines and getting into the final third, but getting the early goal, they did get momentum behind them. They were comfortable in possession. A lot of the possession was happening in amongst the defensive line, as well as Ungobo, who was playing as the six, right? But the fact that they were able to keep the ball, the fact that they did look comfortable in circulating it amongst themselves, that should give them a lot of confidence that they don't have to hang on when they're playing against Orlando Pirates. They can actually play. Now, it would be up to the coach to address what then happened in the second half in terms of how do we keep that up for 90 minutes, because that is the concern, right? That we had it, we had the momentum, we were doing the playing, but we could not sustain that for a period of 90 minutes. And this is what the coach needs to figure out. The other thing, Chuck, is I think they can take away the fact that they can be even better than what they were in that match, and by virtue of making the requisite changes. Because what's going to happen in the cup final is, number one, Duba's going to come back from his suspension, and I believe he's going to give you more than what Ulilepo gave you as a striker. And I think Coach Nabi went with Ulilepo just for his physical profile. He did score the goal, but largely was anonymous in that position, and I think you are better off with him being on one of those wings. At this point, I'd play him ahead of Gaston Sereno. I still think Modi should play. I still think Modi should start, right? So you get Duba back, your leading goal scorer. I think also you get a Miguel. I think Miguel is going to come back into that team, and he brings leadership, but he also brings he's the vocal leader as well of organizing what is happening with the defensive line and everything in front of him. And also he's just a more confident defender with the ball at his feet, because someone who's also played as a DM. So in terms of you looked good with the ball, and now you're bringing somebody else into that team who is even more comfortable than Akwinika, who was playing in that match, then you should be better. And then the third thing, Chuck, for me, the best player on the pitch in the first half was Ungob, right? I absolutely enjoyed his performance. His ability to create separation from his defender with just his first touch, and then how he takes care of the ball and how he circulates the ball and how he gets Kaizer Chiefs playing and moving. I would double down on that, because when I was watching that, I was thinking to myself, man, imagine then if Cele was right there next to him. And then Cele came on in the second half, which means that Coach Nabi said that both he and Miguel were not quite physically ready to play from the start. But the hope for Kaizer Chiefs and Kaizer Chiefs fans would be that Cele can then start or play a majority of the cup final. Cele and Ungobo in the center of the park. I think what we did see in that first half, it's even better because they both can control the game. And Ungobo has worked hard in terms of what he does out of position, and Ucele, we've seen already in his short span with Kaizer Chiefs since joining in the January transfer window, what he also can do out of position and defensively and just screening that back line. I just don't think, for whatever reason, Coach Nabi is going to start the match without Umart. I think he's going to start, but if all of the midfielders are fit, I would play Ucele and Ungobo together. And I think what you then did see in that first half is something that they can be confident that they can replicate when they do bring all those players back into the fold.
Jay, what I saw from the first half, echoing what you're saying in terms of Utawaklele as well, and I also do think that Mart is probably going to start as well. I think Chiefs need to, one, keep their discipline, because I said to you that Gaston Serrano is putting in a shift. He's not asking for the ball, he's not being the star, he's putting in a shift. Yeah, Marca, he's pressing, he's going out wide and going where he needs to be. Then I said to you that the fact that he's coming in now to try add numbers into the midfield might be something that might be a problem, because now he's no longer occupying those spaces. And I think that did add to that. Obviously, as you said as well, Paris did wake up and play better football. But I think it's that discipline, number one. I'd say I'd flood bodies into the midfield, number one. because I think what that did, right, Jay, because if you think about it, essentially what we saw with Pirates is that it was just Makaula and Talent against the three, and they struggled on that day. And if you make them work at some point, as a fan that was sat next to us, one is going to crack, and chances are Talent and Bas is not going to put in a shift. Makaula is going to run the entire 90, and if you can exploit those positions, you've got Sereno was pushing back Ushando on the other side. You've got Dilepo was pushing Marco back the other side. Then you've got space to dominate the midfield. If you can do that, then you can play very well in that game, because then you've got the luxury of playing those passes try open players up, because players like Mdu came alive because Chiefs got possession. Mdu's not good in terms of grafting. Then he must play on a dime and play quick balls. He needs to lift his head up and look for options. That's when he's good, right? And then when you can do that as well, then you've got the chance of exploiting, like I said, the lack of pace. No, TLP. TLP is great in those tight areas where it's 50-50, so he's running for the ball. But if you're running at him, he can be exposed. Hence, I think Pirates consider the goals that they did in the CAF, because he was faced with a new prospect. So for the mere fact that the defense is not going to change, Chiefs must then think about how to exploit that forward lineup, because you are going to have Cloak, you are going to have TLP. Those two are not going to change. Like I said, I don't think Shandu is gonna start. I don't think Marco is going to start. But I think if you can then play those balls over the top, then you're forcing someone like Hoto or Van Rijn to go back, and then you've got one up on the opposition. So I think Chiefs should do that, number one. Number two, I think rely on your talents. The fact that Magafage Tabotkele pulled off Ungowe as well, those are decisions where you're like, Coach, I get it, you're seeing something that we're not probably, but if you've got a player who's dominant, a player who's having a great day, keep him on the pitch for as long as possible, because he can bring you some matches. Because also the other thing is that quality is quality. Rale was quiet the entire first half, but in the second half, given enough times with the ball, he'll produce something. So same thing with Ngobo, because as you're saying, those turns, those touches, he made Chiefs tick. And you're like, this is what we were missing basically the whole entire season. So you've got Ngobo, you've got Ucele together. I think something will come good. So I think, Jay, it's a matter of trying to show up in terms of Cross is gone. What do you do in terms of the other side with Nkota? If you can keep him quiet like Cross did on that day, you're winning half that battle, because if Rele is lost and they play a similar setup, then they're not really that strong, because Nkota got a lot of the ball in the first half but was negated in the pocket. Or Rele didn't get a touch of the ball. That's what allowed Chiefs to play. So I'd pack the midfield. I'd make sure that I've got my best players there, and I'd stay tactically disciplined, because I think that's what lets them down. They play well, but after a while, this player's not in position. Then the team comes back, and then therefore they've got a problem on their hands. So what Chiefs have learned, Jay, and what to do in the final is that, one, believe in yourselves, because you saw for the first 10, 15 minutes that you were the superior team. Try to replicate that for longer. Try to bring on, like you said, Miguel brings better quality, Skele brings on better quality, Duba brings on better quality in terms of being the actual striker who can do the job, who knows what to do in the 9. Go at Pirates. You've got nothing to lose. What you've learned is that if you push, there is some give on the Pirates wing. There is some give in the central defensive area. So go and play. You've got nothing to lose, literally. You've lost the derby. It's been a double. If 2 or 3 losses this season is not going to mean anything, you are where you are in the league. Go all out and win. That's what I've learned in this derby, that Chiefs must just be fearless and play. Also, I think maybe at some point that the tired legs of Pirates will tell. I think eventually, that's why we were seeing these cracks from Talent and he's strolling and he's walking. That's why TLP is getting gutted, because he hasn't played that many games at this level. So I think there's still Pirates are going to play Golden Arrows midweek as well. So by the time the final comes, Chiefs would have been probably better rested. They've got more. They've utilized their squad better than Pirates. So I think if they get their midfield pairing right, stay disciplined, they've got a chance.
Yeah, a shout out to Bradley Cross, who I said I've seen enough in terms of him not quite being Kaizer Chiefs quality. He seemed to be on the day before. He was absolutely rinsed by the young man and got that red card. But he handled himself quite well. I think next to Ngobo, he was the second most impressive player for me from the Kaizer Chiefs side in that first half. And with him missing in that final, I think that Dove needs to move to left back. I would hope, or Chiefs would hope, that Msimango is fit, that you then have him and Miguel as the centre back pairing. Because this season, when Kaizer Chiefs' left backs have been either players who double as centre backs or who are more conservative in their approach as left back, they've been better. We saw when the Clocker was playing there, and then when he left, and then Dover came back from injury. Then he was playing there, and then with Ukros as well, who is also actually essentially a centre back, right, a left centre back. When then he's not been adventurous on that left hand side, like again the performance on Saturday, he was better. So I think that you keep with that blueprint, that you move Dove out there. I'd rather see him there than Mashiane or maybe anyone else who might have a more attacking mindset on that side of the pitch. And I think they'd be fine in that regard.